Hey everybody, I am so excited to share a special interview with you today. We have on the EV Resource podcast, Rue Phillips. Rue is a recognized leader and veteran in the solar, electric vehicle, and renewable technology industries. He has founded or ran numerous companies in the clean tech space, including True South Renewables, Solarrus, and EV Connect. As a sought-after industry expert, Rue is a frequent event keynote and technical speaker and serves on expert advisory committees for the development of codes and standards for the U.S. renewable energy industry. Today, he is founder and president of 365 Pronto, the world's first platform to match clean tech asset owners with a local and on-demand installation and service workforce. He's also host of the successful podcast EV Chat, as well as the community founder and director for the LinkedIn group EV Infrastructure Forum. It is a great honor to have Rue on the EV Resource podcast. Rue Phillips, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Zach, and I have a passion for EV, so I love talking about it. Great to be on EV Resource. Thank you.
Me too. It's easy to get me started, but it's really hard to stop me. So before we really dive into all of that, I want to share with everybody, if you would, your background. You've been in this industry and involved with renewable energy for quite a long time. So if you could kind of give a little bit of where that came from and your journey to where you are now.
Absolutely. So I come from England, so there'll be subtitles for the those that can't understand. I come from a family electrical contracting business in the UK, and we would be doing like a heavy industry, industrial. And back in the day, so when I grew up in the family business, my uncle, who ran the business, he would give me circuits and say, "Hey, if you want a guitar amplifier," I had to build it myself out of old TV parts, So I built my actual first guitar amp out of a TV. And so when we were working on the industrial stuff, we were working on electric vehicles. So I don't know whether you know this, but in England, the milk deliveries back in the day, and I think they still are now, are electric carts. They call them milk floats.
Yep.
And those would go back to the depot and they'd be charged. The lead acid batteries would be charged by battery chargers. So we didn't even know about it. The renewable wasn't even a word back then, but we were fixing electric vehicle chargers back in the 70s, Well, so anyway, I didn't want to join the family business. I wanted to be a rock star. So I formed a rock and roll band and started playing up and down England. And the funny story is I played a U.S. nuclear submarine base in Dunhuan, Scotland.
Neat.
And this is where the submarines would come from the Arctic Circle, and they just have a blast in the bar, And so we were the band, and we went down so well, Zach. I said, we got to go to America. If this is what America is like. So we actually got gigs in the California coast, Camp Pendleton, El Toro, and so I came to the States, left the family business, so to speak, and I was in the rock and roll business. I know this. What's this got to do with electric vehicles? Stay tuned, folks. So I was playing Hollywood with my band, and the dream of being a rock and roll star. And someone from Black Sabbath walked into the Whiskey a Go-Go and saw me playing and said, "Hey, I'm making an album. How would you like to be in a studio, locked in a studio for 2 years, and you're going to be the only unknown musician on that album?" And on that album was Ozzy Osbourne, Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, Cream, Bruce.
Amazing.
It was like, and Black Sabbath, obviously, Deep Purple musicians, Kiss, The Knack, and I co-wrote this album, and I was doing some singing and playing and whatever. And I was, there you go, I was launched, catapulted into the music business. Fast forward about 10, 12, 13 years, I don't know how long it was, I can't remember those days. They're a bit of a fog. But I jumped off the crazy train just before it hit the brick wall, and decided rather than go back to England and be a rock star, hey, I like America. and I formed an electrical contracting business because that's all I knew how to do other than play guitar. And what was funny, Zach, this was in 1994, 95. At that exact same time, there was an RFP, a request for proposals, that came out by Edison. Southern California Edison is a big West Coast utility, and they had formed this division called Edison EV. And basically, there was a ZEV mandate, a zero emission vehicle mandate in the mid 90s that said, thou shalt drive an electric car within 10 years, which meant was 10% of vehicles by 2012 would have to be zero emission. Remember, this is 1995,
Sure.
and this rocker kid has just formed a company and answered this. And one of the questions was, have you ever had any experience with electric vehicles? Well, back in the 90s,
Not too many people would have.
not too many people would have. And I said, yes, I installed electric vehicle chargers, lots of them, and I fixed them. Sure enough, I was shortlisted from 2,000 entries, shortlisted to 20. And I was one of two contractors that were doing installations in Orange County, California. And so if you were in Orange County in 1995 to 2000, around there, and you saw an electric vehicle charger, there's a good chance that I installed it and serviced it. So,
Wow.
so
I would imagine a lot of those would have been for the EV1, or is that too early even?
No, I had the EV1. I drove an EV1.
Cool.
Oh my goodness, I loved that car. So it was remember, it was the goal was 10% of vehicles by 2012. I tell you who had electric vehicles, Zach. Honda, Ford had an electric Range Rover. The Ranger, sorry.
Yep.
Range
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ford, Nissan, Toyota, GM, Chrysler. BMW didn't back then, but so there were a handful of cars, and I got familiar with these. But moreover, my job was infrastructure, not necessarily the cars. So at that time, there was a bit of confusion. Even then, how do we charge? Anyway, that's the story of how I got in.
Sure. No, that's fantastic. So many people that I've talked with don't have that kind of extensive history with the EV community. And certainly, mid 90s in Southern California, I mean, that's like almost EV Mecca. Like that's where it started, So you have your own podcast as well, EV Chat. And I know one of or maybe the first person that you had on was Chelsea Sexton, who she's maybe more well known because of her direct involvement with the EV1. So perhaps your efforts with the charging infrastructure, maybe you're the unsung hero, where the car is great, but if you don't have a place to charge it, what good is the car?
Yeah, because of my affiliation with the rock and roll industry, Chelsea and Edison EV at the time, they said, well, if it's going to be a movie star, let Rue install it, because he's not going to make a big deal of, oh, can I get your autograph or whatever. So I was doing a lot of the movie stars like Tom Hanks, and and it was really, really cool. So yeah, good time to be in electric vehicles.
Yeah. So fast forward 20 years. I mean, that's a lot to skip, I know. But, to within the last 5 years or so, you haven't finished with your efforts in the renewable energy world and the EV space. Talk a little bit about what you have going on now.
So I got involved with the electric vehicles, as you know, like I just said, 1994. I put them in, I took them out. I put them in, and only in America. God bless America, you can do that, So I founded a couple of companies. One of them I was proud to be a part of was EV Connect, and but I wanted to focus not just on the installation. No one was catering, and even giving a thought, Zach, about the operations and maintenance and the serviceability of the infrastructure. So what was happening was there was an exodus of contractors coming over the hill wanting to be installers of this new product or whatever. And Doing a service call, nah, that's not my interest. So a lot
Sure.
of the public charging stations were kind of redundant. They weren't working. Let's put it like that, simple. They just weren't working. So I founded a company, 365 Pronto, with a focus towards automating the O&M process, so that the experience for the driver doesn't get disrupted when they actually pull up, with range anxiety. Oh, I need a charge, and they get to a charger and it's not working.
Yeah.
365 Pronto was founded to kind of help eliminate that problem in the industry. So we're a nationwide network, automated network where we kind of affiliate, if you like. That's not the word, but we via an API handshake, we can connect a technician with a machine, the machine being the EV charger,
Mhm.
and keep it uptime, keep it working.
Well, that's so important. I'll tell you a short story. My first experience with an EV was about 3 years ago. I had ordered off of Carvana, the online car sales, a 2016 Chevy Spark EV. So somewhat of a rare car. The first actually in North America to use the CCS combo plug for fast
Mhm.
charging. And so I said, great, there's 8 chargers. I looked on PlugShare, of course, and there's 8 DC fast charging stations around Richmond. So I felt very confident, even with only having an 80-mile range. So I get this car from Carvana, and they give you like a week to test it out, up to 400 miles. And I go to the DC fast charging station closest to me, plug in, nothing happens.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
going, well, maybe the station's broken or something's going on. Okay, no problem. Go to the next one. Same thing. Nothing happens. I'm going, tried a third. That didn't work either. At this point, I said, okay, something's wrong with the car. I gave it back to Carvana. They gave me a new one, almost identical. I mean, within a couple miles on the odometer, 2016 Chevy Spark EV. Take that to a 4th charger. That didn't work. I'm going, hold on. What is going on? Finally, I went to a dealership who had a Bosch 20 kilowatt unit plugged in. That worked. Again, okay, the car is fine. Gonna keep the car. But what I realized is, at least here in Virginia, Nissan had put up like $70,000 per unit to have these old Signet chargers installed. And that was their part. They put up the money for installation and washed their hands of it. They were done. It was
Mhm.
up to the site host to maintain them. Well, a lot of these older units, the CCS modules inside were breaking. The Chatamo side was fine, which I'm suspicious of, being that it was Nissan that put them in. But, it was the CCS modules were breaking, and people were looking into the cost to fix them, and it was like $30,000 and $40,000 to update these units. So for a while, there were very few that were actually working,
Mhm.
which was frustrating. And now, of course, with the advent of Electrify America and EV Go, we have some, I want to say, more reliable charging solutions. But even then, there's still a lot of places that, when you go to a gas station with the gas powered car, you don't think, hey, is this going to work or not? It never crosses your mind.
Absolutely.
You put the filler into the top of the fill for the gas tank, and you just put gasoline or diesel in your vehicle. It just works. Where we're still at a point where, with the EV charging infrastructure, you might roll up to a charger and it doesn't work. And the problem with an EV is you have a longer distance between chargers. So you might not get to the next one. What if that doesn't work? I had that happen I took a short road trip and pulled up to an Electrify America charger. It didn't communicate with the Spark EV. It's an older car that they didn't make many of, so I'm not too surprised. So then I had to go to the next charger, and I probably had maybe a quarter of a mile left before being left on the side of the road, that luckily I was able to go and plug in, and it worked. So I've experienced this firsthand, and I know a lot of early EV drivers have probably similar stories, I'm sure. What is it that really, two questions, I guess. What's the problem? Like, why is it that we can't have an EV charger that has next to none downtime? I mean, really, like 99.9% of the time it's going to work. Why can't that happen? And then what do we need to do in order to get to that kind of reliability so that people, especially now as EV adoption is just accelerating, people need to have confidence in the infrastructure?
So yeah, let's talk about that. I'm an O&M guy, and operations and maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
First off, the big problem is educating the masses that installing them is one part, maintaining them is another. I'm going to give you an analogy. Someone builds $100 million beautiful hotel, okay, a Marriott hotel, downtown Phoenix, and they just spent $100 million on that. What do you think their budget is for the operations and maintenance of that hotel on a weekly, monthly, and an annual basis? They actually have a mechanism in place to keep the place running. What we don't have right now is an awareness that we need to electrify America. There's an infrastructure that we're implementing but we also need to put in place an operations and maintenance schedule and a mechanism that we're used to seeing when we pull up to a gas pump, like you said, exactly. We don't even think about it. We expect that gas pump that we pull it out, we plug it in. It's not. We're not there yet. I mentioned. You mentioned that I do a EV chat podcast. One of the questions I ask the industry moguls, so to speak, is on a 1 to 10, what number are you going to give for reliability of the infrastructure when you pull up to a charger? From 1 to 10, and they basically said we'll give it a 3 or 4%, or a 4 out of 10,
Yep.
that it's going to actually be working. Now that's sad. These were industry professionals, and I've asked manufacturers of product. So, in short, to answer your question, it's a lack of understanding of what we need, the mechanism. I'm actually out there speaking with the legislators and say, come on, let's use some of this money for the operations and maintenance on that. Number one, the big part is communications. I got to tell you, if you actually want to go technical, there's probably nothing wrong with the unit itself. It's stopped talking to the cloud.
Yeah.
But I want to point something out, and this is about training. It's not just about this is where 365 Pronto comes in, because you can't just say, oh, we're going to have an operations and maintenance process in place. Well, where are you going to get the talent and the skill in order to do that work? You mentioned something that, okay, these DC fast chargers are about 30 to 50 to $60,000. So there's this electronic piece of equipment that is on a parking lot where it's either going to be 118 degrees if you're in Arizona, or minus X if you're in Michigan. And this very expensive CPU is expected to work. And when it's when it's broken, it's going to be expected to be fixed. So what we need to put in place is, like I say, that awareness, those billions of dollars worth of funds we need to at least assign some of that towards a mechanism like what we're putting together with 365 Pronto.
Do you find that that's something that other people are? Is there a conversation surrounding the responsibility to the service of operations and maintenance outside of installation? Because at least from my perspective, it seems like all I hear is that we need more chargers and it's all about installation. And while that is true, I mean, I think, at least from the last time I checked the Alternative Fuels Data Center website, there's about 5,000 CCS plugs across the US, and probably the same amount of CHAdeMO, give or take. I don't think CCS has overtaken CHAdeMO yet. About 1,400 Tesla superchargers in the US. So yes, we do need more. That's where the conversation typically is. I haven't heard people talking about the service and maintenance and keeping that in mind. Everybody's just wants to throw in a bunch of chargers, but then who is responsible for keeping them in good shape? I think it's easier when you have private companies like Electrify America and EVgo and ChargePoint to a point. I know they have some special things that with the way they do it, but when you've got private companies that their reputation is on the line, they have a reason to keep them maintained and keep them in good shape, because otherwise people just won't use them and then they're out of business. They won't make any money. But a lot of the DC fast chargers around the country are independent, if you will. They're not networked. They're, a business wants to put it in, or a municipality in many cases wants to have an EV charger, and they cut the ribbon and everybody is happy with the PR. But then I don't hear that conversation about what happens after that.
Well, there's a bit of a problem, Zach. Okay. Right now, there's a focus towards the settlements and the mandates. Like you said, these big guys, Electrify America, EVgo, everyone is focused on installing the infrastructure. Let's eliminate range anxiety and put tens of thousands of these chargers everywhere. And there is no focus, there is no legislation or mandate that says thou shalt make these work.
Right.
And that's why programs like this and EV Chat, that what we need to do is educate anybody that wants to get into the electric vehicle space. Then think about these things have a lifetime. There's a great market, a revenue stream for contractors that want to get in the service and maintenance side of electric vehicles.
Sure. So what would be, I guess, the best advice for, let's say, a business that they see the value of offering DC fast charging? You know what? Scratch that. I'm gonna be more specific. I've got a relationship with a local racetrack, and I love being on track. I want to be racing, driving the corners, whether I'm by myself or not, as much as possible. With an electric vehicle, my Spark, to be specific, I've got maybe 5 laps and then I've got to recharge. So I have started a conversation with them about having a DC fast charger installed so that they're future-proofing their business. More EVs are going to be involved in motorsport. Well, aside from the initial cost, which there are grants and other things that can kind of help absorb some of those initial costs, what does it cost to maintain an EV charger, and what is the expected lifetime? Are we talking 10, 15, 20 years? Or is that unreasonable? I mean, will they last that long?
So the cost to maintain EV infrastructure, number one, if it's preventative maintenance, then you're gonna reduce the fix-it costs, the repairs.
Sure.
So yeah, I've been trying to get a 365 Pronto to the table where we can at least kind of address the awareness problem, Zach. So to answer your question, what does it cost for operations and maintenance? Well, first off, it's going to cost you a lot of money to fix these big DC fast chargers if they break. So the first thing I would advise to do is if I'm a contractor getting into the EV space right now, I would want to find out who the major manufacturers are of these DC fast chargers, and I would have my electricians and technicians trained and certified by that product. By the way, that's after you've signed on to the 365 Pronto network. But what I'm getting at is be aware. And I call it preventative maintenance process and protocol. That is what they are minimal. I can't give you how much does it take for an electrician? We call them pallets. It's actually a guy that goes out there and he cleans the CCS connectors. He checks for vandalism. He looks. He runs a test. And he gives that site a go. So he's actually going there on a monthly basis saying all of these EVSEs are operable. How awesome would that be, Zach, if we had that as a process built in to mandatory requirements. You shall install these chargers, but not only that, once a month, we want you to send someone out there and test each one of the chargers and make sure they're working, clean the filters. Now, that's minimal. If you're spending, the cost of a DC fast charger is anywhere from $30 to $70,000. Then you've got the installation on there. If you want to pay $200 to $500 a month, to go and check that site and keep it operable, I guarantee you that gas station that you used as an example, as an analogy, where you show up, I guarantee you once a month someone shows up there and does preventative maintenance on that, each one of those units. They don't wait for them to break.
Sure.
There's someone out there. So there's my answer. Preventative operations and maintenance process and protocol is going to reduce the cost.
That is something that admittedly I haven't put too much thought into, but it's so necessary. I mean, you can apply an analogy to just any other part of life, really. The more effort and money, admittedly, that you put into preventing problems and just maintaining things in good shape, you limit those large, mostly surprising expenses that can be somewhat catastrophic. I can think, to the use case of at a track, which I want to see every racetrack across the US having a fast charger there that works flawlessly, that it's just reliable. When you're running a racetrack, you plug in, it works, and then you can go home or keep going around the racetrack. So that is something that it would almost be wise of, we'll use EV Connect. I've talked with EV Connect before when I had dreams of starting my own charging network here in Virginia. That was before COVID. So I have somewhat of an understanding of how they, as a third party, can work with many different manufacturers of charging equipment to have a business that wants to install that and then be able to offer a wide array of pricing and other things related to that. Never came up about having a maintenance and operations budget, schedule, anything like that. In fact, all of my planning didn't even include that because it didn't come into my head at all.
It doesn't, and that's the problem. The biggest and the baddest. EV Connect is in the top 3 or 4 in the network service providers for nationwide electric vehicle chargers, and yet, like you said, it doesn't come up. They assume that there's already a mechanism in place, and I'm certainly not saying anything bad about EV Connect. But we assume that there's going to be an electrician local that's going to want to pick up a ticket and go and fix that charger which is down. And right. that's where again, I founded 365 Pronto because of that, because what we do need is trained, certified, compliant electricians that are readily available when that unit goes down. I would love, and I'm going to keep going back to that gas station that you use, Zach. I would love to find out what the O&M looks like on those.
Right. Yeah, and of course I have no idea. The only thing I know about a gas station is that you go and you pay and you pump gas, and or at least from what I remember. Anyway, it's been a couple of years.
so I had a brief spell in the solar industry, and I did some quite large arrays of portfolios of solar. And as an operations and maintenance contractor, we had an obligation for 99% uptime. So, which meant that if the sun was out, that system had to be working 99% of the time. Yeah. So it couldn't be down more than, I think it's 4 days of the year, which is 99%. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what it didn't mean that I couldn't guarantee that the sun was going to come out the clouds, but what I did have to guarantee that if the sun was out, that was working. Now we are starting to see those kind of that kind of language built into EV charging stations. I know ChargePoint has an uptime guarantee
Hmm.
Of course, it's a piece of paper right now. We need to make that actually work by making sure that what I want to point out is part of the problem as well, Zach, is that we presently have a shortage of labor even for the installations.
Hmm.
I was speaking at a EV conference in New York a couple of months ago, and there were a couple of the commissioners and legislators there, and they said, ladies and gents, the stimulus money hasn't even hit the streets yet, and we're in trouble.
Hmm.
We're not
Hmm.
going to meet the forecasted milestones, because we don't have the labor force right now. When billions of dollars are hit, we're going to be even worse. It is time to train and certify a common workforce, if you like, across the US. That, hey guys, it's no longer tree huggers that drive EVs. When I was in there, Zach, it was like you had Birkenstock shoes and straw hats, and you were a tree hugger if you drove an electric car.
Sure.
It's different now.
Yep.
People that drive electric cars actually do it because it's common sense. They're great cars. I love them. They're silent and they're part of the future. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to that point, I have started to speak now with people that have bought an electric car, and the fact that it was electric was the furthest point from their mind when they bought it. They bought it
mhm.
because they liked the performance and how practical it was. I had a friend that just bought a Mustang Mach-E, and she told me she didn't even know it was electric until at the very, like, towards the end of the process, the guy's like, hey, so where are you going to charge it? And she's like, what do you mean? They didn't even tell her it was an electric vehicle. She took a test drive, and I'm going, I don't understand how that's possible that you could go through all that. But she chose that vehicle without any idea that it was electric, which
That's awesome.
I think that's great. I think we are finally reaching this point where, yeah, people are choosing to buy electric cars, and it has nothing to do with an environmental benefit or for climate change. And obviously, those are good reasons to go EV as well. But you're not going to get the mass of people converted and transitioning over to an electric vehicle for that reason. Most
Exactly.
people, sadly, don't care.
Uh,
Before I had an EV, I wasn't one of the people that really cared. Now I've learned a lot more. I recognize, hey, the environment, our world, our planet, our home, the only one we have, is rather important. So, that had to grow on me. But if the fundamental aspect of infrastructure isn't addressed, then it doesn't matter how many EVs are sold, because people will stop buying them
mhm.
if they can't find a place that is reliable that they can charge. And I'm talking mostly about people that don't have access to at-home chargers. I'm lucky. I live in a place where I have a cord running up from my laundry room to the charger outside. I can plug in overnight here at home. But if I lived in an apartment complex or in a major city where there wasn't on-street parking, 40% of people don't have access to be able to charge an electric vehicle overnight at home. So they have to be kind of put into the model of, okay, go out somewhere else and find a fast charger. And if that doesn't work, that's going to be a huge problem.
Well, you know what, Zach? I'm known in the industry as somewhat of a troublemaker.
Good.
I shout from the mountaintops. And as long as I've got breath in my lungs, I will be speaking serviceability, operations, and maintenance, and because I do it with a passion. From when I was a kid, being involved with the electric cars and seeing them develop. In this great nation, and like you said, seeing more people buy electric cars because it's common sense rather than save the world aspect. So, but I do have a passion for seeing the electrification being adopted in a more common sense way, and I want to be a part of educating those contractors. Hey, come
Yeah.
on, let's do this. Let's get together. What do you think? You talk about adoption. What do you think about the people with solar and battery energy storage, the people that buy electric cars now are also kind of the people that have solar on their roof. What's your thoughts on that, Zach?
There's a lot of crossover between the two markets that at one point were somewhat separate. I have some connections here in Virginia with an organization that they operate as a co-op, and they will gather a group of either solar buyers or EV charger buyers for people that want them at home, and as a group then approach installers or manufacturers to get the best deal. Solar United Neighbors is what they're called. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're actually in like 13 different states right now. But they're focused on the solar aspect, and what I've found is a lot of the people that are interested in solar either already have an electric vehicle, or their next vehicle, they're very interested in getting that. And I really think as technology advances on the EV side to be able to do vehicle to grid or vehicle to home charging and use the big batteries in the cars to then power your home, like in the event of a power failure, that is where those industries, there's going to be so much interconnectedness between the cars and your home. And if you've got solar and a battery backup as well, I think that's probably one of the greatest things that you could do as a homeowner, is to be energy independent, where if the grid goes down, you just keep on going. It doesn't matter. If I had a car that I could just plug it in like I normally do, and the wall box integrated into putting that back, and then solar would help recharge. I mean, it just makes sense, honestly. I mean, that's the short answer. It makes so much sense.
I'm a big fan of exactly what you're talking about, V2G, vehicle to grid, and vehicle to home.
Yeah.
And I can gladly say that most of the new electric vehicle charger, the EVSE devices are bi-directional. The new ones are going to be bi-directional, because a lot of the new cars will be able to act as a battery pack to power your home if the power goes out. This is, it used to be futuristic, but I mean, even the Ford F-150, they have a new electric. Have you seen that, Zach?
Yeah, actually, if it wasn't this morning, it was yesterday that they did a thing where they were showing that you could plug in another EV to the F-150 Lightning and charge up to 7.2, 7.6 kilowatts from the Ford, the Lightning truck, and I'm going, that's awesome. You basically have a level 2 charger that is now mobile. I think it's fantastic. I'm so excited about it. Throughout my life, there have been times where I felt like I was born too late, that I missed out on, whatever was happening that I wished I was involved with. But I tell you, the more the EV industry and renewable energy industry evolves, I really feel like there's no better time. I mean, I am living at the best moment. I'm so excited about the future, the way things are going.
It is awesome. I think the smart home is around the corner. The first step to a smart home is either having a solar system on your roof, a battery energy storage unit, or pulling up in your garage with an electric vehicle. The next step is when these all integrate and talk with each other.
Yeah.
I've been doing solar now for a couple of few years, and basically it was really annoying when in California you got all this beautiful sun and the grid goes down and you have no power.
Right.
So having them integrate with the electric vehicle, the solar, and the battery energy storage, I think that's a now factor. I don't think that's a part of the future.
I want to kind of circle back a little bit, because the labor shortage, or really in a lot of what's needed, is people that are trained properly. That's where it has to almost start at this point, where we need to get that taken care of well before we can then implement any of the other plans. if you don't have the manpower, the labor force behind it, we're going to really struggle with being able to maintain anything that gets built out.
Well, so I do lectures at local community colleges, basically the trade schools. And I think where it needs to start also is that not everybody in life needs an MBA. Okay, not everybody is going to be an accountant or a computer programmer. What we need is we're going to need plumbers. There's a shortage of plumbers. There's a shortage of carpenters, mechanics. Specifically in the EV space, we need trained, certified technicians and electricians. So I think where we need to start with that, Zach, and by the way, 365 Pronto, our mega theme is all about training, the three C's: certification, compliance, and competence. So what I want to do is go out there and be an evangelist for the renewable space that says, look, there is a good living to be made in battery energy storage, in solar operations and maintenance, and electric vehicle chargers. You are going to be driving your electric car on the freeway, and you're going to look around you, and 80%, let's say 50, 60% of the cars within your site are going to be zero emission vehicles.
Yeah.
And they're going to go home and they're going to charge on an electric charger. That's going to require an electrician, a technician of some level of certification and compliance. What you and I are doing right now in educating the people out there that says we don't just need installers, we need people to service and maintain these for decades.
Yeah. So what is an expected lifespan of, let's say, a DC fast charger? Because that really is, I don't know. Personally, I think we need more DC fast chargers than level 2. I know there's a lot of conversation, but DC fast chargers are much more complicated, much more expensive. What is the expected lifetime of a DC fast charger? I mean, if somebody's putting something in and it costs $30,000 to $60,000, how? I mean, you want that to last as long as possible if maintained properly.
There you go.
What do we expect? I mean, is that something that would last a decade, 2 or more?
I can tell you from an operations and maintenance contractor, so to speak, in the industry, that when they sell that product, they'll sell it with a 5-year warranty, with an extended 5 years. So the product itself could or should come with a manufacturer's 5-year minimum or an extended 10-year warranty. Now, first off, that's if it's maintained, if it's serviced, because they say, if it's broke, we'll replace the parts. They don't guarantee that an electrician is going to be around the corner. Right. To fix it. Moreover, here's the other thing as well. Technology is advancing so fast that I wouldn't expect a DC fast charger that has a 10-year warranty to be around for 10 years, because I think that in 10 years from now, there's going to be a supercharger or whatever that charger is that's going to annihilate what's in there.
Pull it and replace it with the latest.
So it brings back to us with the labor force again, is the opportunities for the serviceability and the maintenance of these is massive. If I'm an electrician, I would be thinking about this. And I always put it like this, Zach. Imagine if you buy a really reliable computer, whether it's a Mac or a PC, okay, and you put it in a box and you put it on the parking lot and expect it to work for 10 years, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. No.
It's not going to happen. Things are going to, but even with the best of maintenance, we are going to need a workforce. So yeah, I'm excited about the opportunities for the contractors and electricians. We just got to get them out there,
Yeah, I mean, so many people, there's such a push for higher level education when it comes to college, but I think that for whatever reason, the trades are looked at as being less important, which I think that's complete and utter bullcrap.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't matter how many, well, I don't know, I won't even go there. But we need people. we definitely need people to be on all sides of that. And as a trade, you can still make a great living. I mean, you can make 6 figures plus doing exactly what we're talking about, servicing EV chargers.
So when I co-founded 365 Pronto, the first thing I wanted to do is, where do I find a labor force of people that are even interested in servicing and operating and maintaining solar and electric vehicle plants. The number one place I went to, which was the EVITP and NABCEP. The NABCEP is the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners.
Okay.
And basically, it's for solar, and you need to have 5 years experience in installing solar before you can actually get this certification. So that was the one affiliation that we went to first. EVITP is the electric vehicle, the EVITP, Electric Vehicle Installation Training Program.
Okay.
They have 5,000 people that have gone through, 5,000 technicians which have gone through a program. So between NABCEP's 3,000 and EVITP's 5,000, you got a nice pool to go to get a few hundred technicians. My point here is there are programs out there for someone that wants to get trained. If you want to become a plumber, go and get certified as a plumber. You don't need to be an accountant to make a good living and buy a house in America nowadays. I think you and I need to, again, because of of our focus on the electric vehicle space, we've got a bit of work to do.
That we do. Well, and the interesting thing, I started EV Resource with education of the masses in mind. I mean, literally, that's what drove the choosing of the name EV Resource, because I wanted to put together a place where people could find the resources to answer the questions that they had about electric vehicles. And occasionally I've come to a point where I'm going, look, 10 years down the road, is that even going to be relevant? Am I going to be needed to help educate people? And conversations like this are really refreshing, because it's like, there will always be something that people need to know more about. Even if it's not the cars specifically themselves or the basics of an EV and how does it work, and how do you charge an EV and those things, where those have been important. And for a lot of people, they still will be. 20 years from now, that will be irrelevant. I'm not going to need to tell people how to charge their car. That will be common knowledge. But I think we'll run into more and more things like this, where even on the residential side, if you've got a level 2 charger installed at home, who do you call to fix it if it doesn't work? Is that going to be the manufacturers themselves? Are you buying whatever they offer through them? Or are you going to just go through the phone book and search for an electrician? Well, people need to know, hey, I don't need just any old electrician. I need to make sure I can pick one that is qualified properly to be able to work with this and understand not only the function of the electrons, the electrical side of it, but also how a charger communicates with the car on the software side of things, to be able to determine what exactly is where the fault lies.
That's where they'll be calling Pronto. Seriously, yeah. I know.
That's great. That's great.
The Pronto network is exactly what to ensure that not only do you call an electrician, but you call someone that knows about that particular product. So I think what you mentioned, 10 years from now, there will be a Zach and an EV Resource, and the reason for that,
I'm not going anywhere.
Exactly, we're bringing communities together on technologies. One of the big annoying things, you mentioned Chelsea Sexton. She was the first person, I think, one of the first on the EV Chat show, and basically I said, Chelsea, I'm really annoyed about one thing here. We seem to be reinventing the wheel. We already know what it takes to install a 40 amp 240 volt level 2 circuit in a house. It hasn't changed. The device really hasn't changed that much. It's smarter. It talks to the cloud,
right?
But it's it's pretty much exactly
the fancy switch.
Yeah, so why therefore are we paying 4 times as much for that circuit just because it says electric vehicle charger?
Yep.
If I were to have a dryer circuit installed in my garage tomorrow, it would be no big deal. It would be like, yeah, we'll go pull the permit. We're going to come from there. But you mentioned electric vehicle charger circuit in your garage, and that's where, as a
Oh,
community,
they get dollar signs in their eyes.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where we as a community, we can come in and say, relax, guys.
I'm going to expand on that because for many people, they won't need to install a level 2 circuit at all.
That's right.
They can either use the existing 110 and just charge, it I don't know, maybe 1 kilowatt, if that, 12 amps on a 110.
Mhm.
Or because I did that with my Spark EV for a year and a half. I didn't have level 2 here at the house. And then when I did finally spring for a level 2 EVSE, you know what I've done? I bought a 75-foot welder's extension cable.
Mhm.
So it's rated like 50 amps, 600 volts outdoor. I mean, it's the right cord for the job. But then
Exactly.
I've got that running.
SO cable. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's good. But I've got that running around the back of the house to the dryer plug,
Mhm.
where when I want to charge the car, it's plugged in. When I want to use the dryer, I unplug the car, the EVSE, and I plug in the dryer. And I mean, they make things that are automatic switching, so you don't have to manually do that. But I'm cheap. I'm not going to spend, $400 or $500 to do something I can do just fine. And if the plug wears out, I'll replace it. Like, that's no big deal. I'm a little bit more unique as a DIY person than probably a lot of people are. But
Mhm.
my point is, you don't have to spend $1,000 to hire an electrician to come install something for you. Many times you can work with the existing circuitry of your house and use that to charge your car. The knowledge of that, okay, I'm buying an electric car, now I need to go get a charger. Most people don't drive that much.
Mhm.
And if they have, especially if their EV is their second vehicle and their primary vehicle or their other car is gas powered, you might not even need it.
So he was, yeah. Okay. I would apply caution with that statement, and I would
Okay,
take advantage. I would take advantage of the free estimate for a guy to come out and check your system out. And the reason why
I'll
I
give you
say
that.
that, so some houses in the US, so let's go back in time in the 90s where this $5 billion company called Edison had a program where if someone walked into a Honda dealership and wanted to buy an electric Honda, they would send Rue and his company to go and check out your system, Zach. So I'm showing up at your house right now, and I see you got a 100 amp circuit, main service
Yep.
panel.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that you got an electric dryer in your garage, you've got an electric range, and you've got a little bit of an air conditioning unit. And I would say to you, you're going to pop your main breaker if you cook a turkey, you got your dryer
You're
on, and
doing
you put
all of it
your
at the
dryer
same
on.
time. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I would suggest that you have some work done before you plug in. Now you're going to tell me, no, I won't. I won't cook the turkey and have the dryer on at the same time. So that's where the caution comes in to do
Sure.
it. To have a proper electrician come and check your system out.
Yeah. Most people are not like me, that I know what I'm using. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so technical. I get into it so much that most people aren't going to do that, and they don't care to. They just want to plug in and forget about it and not even think.
Exactly. All the new houses built in America will have a dedicated circuit for an electric vehicle charger. That's pretty much a fact. If I'm proven wrong in some states, fine, okay, send me an email. But eventually, electric vehicle chargers will be. It'll be nah. That's no problem at all. Now
Sure.
DC fast chargers, I don't see any need for a DC fast charger in your home, and the reason for that is you're asleep for how many hours? Why do
Yep.
you need your car charging in 15 minutes when they're convenient? I call level 2 convenient chargers.
Sure.
It's convenient while I'm at the movie theater to plug it in and top off my car or charge my car because I need it. It's convenient while I'm shopping. So the DC fast chargers are a need if I'm down on power. So we don't need as many DC fast chargers. Would you agree with that, Zach?
Overall, yes, I absolutely agree with that. I think generally that's where the reliability is going to be more important because there's more of a need. Where if I pull up to the grocery store and there's a level 2 charger, I'm going to use it because it's there. I have an opportunity to do so, but I'm not plugging in because it's my last mile and I'm plugging into a level 2 because I have to. I'm going to search for a DC fast charger in those cases. And when I pull up to one, I want to make sure that, yes, it's going to work.
Yep. Indeed.
So, Rue, I know we're running into a time limit for us both here. So I want to wrap it up. And first, thank you very much for the conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking about this with you. You've highlighted a lot of things that, admittedly, I hadn't considered to the fullest extent. And I really appreciate that because anytime somebody can push me a little bit further with my own education, then I can help by trying to communicate in the best way I can to share that with other people. So I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's been an honor to be a part of your show. Thank you for a great conversation, Zach.
So that's all this time. I do want to thank you all for watching and listening. I have more interviews in the works, a few other things lined up, so this will not be the last one. I tend to sporadically fill them in from time to time, but I do have a couple that I've already done that I'm getting ready to put together, edit fully, and get out there to you all. So if you haven't already, subscribe. That way, when I do get them out, you will get them delivered to you automatically, or if you're on YouTube, you'll be notified about it. So definitely subscribe, follow, whatever the platform it is. Click on the bell, all of that, all of the good stuff. Go ahead and like the video. If you haven't, on especially Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave a review. That way you can let people know what you think about the EV Resource Podcast and the work that I'm doing. So that is all. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you all next time.